First and foremost, this blog really isn't a travel blog. It's not really a food blog. I mean, it kind of is a travel blog, it's kind of a food blog. But you know what this blog really is about? Later. This is the famous long sandbar that you keep talking about on Kalanggaman Island. Seems to stretch on forever, except for that little tail back there. And right now it's low tide, so it's a good time to come out here. But the problem is, it's almost the middle of the day and it's scorching. Scorching hot despite all the cloud cover. Right behind me. It seems I've reclaimed my voice after many of these videos being silent. And to be honest with you, I really haven't been doing a good job with these vlogs to my liking. First and foremost, this blog really isn't a travel blog. It's not really a food blog. I mean, it kind of is a travel blog, it's kind of a food blog. But you know what this blog really is about? It's about, well, I don't really know what it's about, to be honest. It's a lot of things. I think a general purpose one. Now, one thing I dislike about YouTube, or what they say, is you have to find your niche. And so it's all a bunch of marketing jargon to kind of narrow what you're producing as some sort of commodified sort of art. It's almost like self-regulating. It's what you would, like the Marxist philosopher Theodor Adorno said about the culture industry. So I despise being just limited to a travel and food blog. What this really is about going to different places, trying different food, and then kind of attaching different symbols and meanings to them. It's discovering alternate realities, just like right now I'm in an alternate reality. I'm in a strange place. After 1,132 blogs of nothing but critical theoretical nonsense, I find that those videos don't exist anymore. And so here I am in an alternate timeline that looks all very familiar. I'm still Filipino and I'm still American, but I'm a stranger. I'm a simulacrum of a person that never existed. What you're watching here doesn't really exist in that case. We're kind of like stuck in a Guy Debord or Jean Baudrillard spectacle come hyper reality of a place, a reality in the universe that really only exists in the mind, and it's what you see is reality is a human construct rather than something that is there. It's static, it's immovable, it's irrefutable. It's not. So this is what the blog is about. It's about existential loneliness, and to be honest with you, this place may make you feel happy as far as like it boosting what you would say vitamin C, or really it's vitamin D. It's like the vitamins you get, or whatever feel good neurotransmitter goes off in your brain, and your endorphins that go off just because you're in the sun and you're seeing the sea and the sand or whatever. I'm talking about a different kind of loneliness. I'm not talking about social isolation. I'm not talking about interpersonal isolation, although for me, I guess I fit that sort of mold as a schizoid person with no friends and no relations really to speak of, and kind of proud of it, I guess you could say. It's more of an existential thing for me. It's this feeling like the onus is on you to go find what is meaningful in the world. Kind of like the idea of Nietzsche, God is dead, meaning that the self or the person is the sole arbiter of what they find meaningful in life, what keeps them going. Because should you find a purpose in life even, or should you even find any meaning? Does it even, make any sense what you do? Does it have any potential ramifications outside of a socio-cultural context and so on? So that to me is what this blog's about. It isn't food, it isn't travel, although I will critique a lot about white privilege and people who travel with white privilege, especially a place like the Philippines. So where, let's face it, us Filipinos, we kind of do everything we can to please white people as far as like what our opinion is of them, and we have that massive inferiority complex. That's what this is kind of about. And it's kind of also and I know I'm rambling about this as well, it's about the dangers of identity politics, I think, because to me, I would say, I begrudgingly say, what are you first? I'm culturally American. This comes from a very American or westernized perspective, but yet has its roots in something Filipino, distinctively. So I think like lend some sort of different voice to what you're looking for. But once again, I'm not really about travel vlogging. I'm not really about food vlogging. I'm not really about critical theory either. I'm not interested in giving you a kind of radical tutorial about radical leftist politics. That's not really what I'm about either. What I'm about really, I guess, is a melange of things. You know, things like the occult and chaos magic. There'll be times in which I talk about that, or toroidal metaphysics, some weird stuff. Maybe some quantum mechanics, that kind of thing. You know, alternate realities, conspiracy theories. I'm kind of all over the place as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I feel like I let a burden, I guess, off my shoulders. I feel like, yeah. And now we've reached the end of the sandbar, appropriately enough. And they don't advise you to swim in this water because the currents here are very strong, as you can see. This is like the longest sandbar I've ever walked on in the Philippines, and it's almost like a piece of the Maldives, if it were. And not very expensive to get to either. For a boat, and probably a capacity of about 30, 40, maybe 50 people. I lose count. That doesn't really interest me. It's only like $15 per person with food, something to that effect. $15 US. Not bad. I mean, you need to temper your expectations a bit. When you see this island, it's like very slim. It almost feels like you have the place all to yourself. That's not really true, but I'll say this much: there's enough space here to make you feel like you got a nice slice of paradise without a lot of people kind of getting in the way, which is kind of what I like. And look at the beautiful shades of the sea here, which I guess, again, like I always say, this must be a figment of my imagination in a solipsistic kind of way. These people don't really exist. And I don't exist either. I'm just a theory that goes on and on, that, you know, a deconstructed person who's not really a person. That's me. And this place, in a way, makes you feel existentially lonely. You realize how big nature is. In this big sandbar, you realize these currents here are indifferent to you, that the design of the universe is kind of, there's an inanimate nothingness about it, even though you think that there's perhaps some kind of consciousness, like the rocks here have a consciousness and so on, like regular human beings would. Is this feeling that you don't fit in the Philippines? Is this feeling that you don't fit in America, that you're kind of running away? And that's kind of what I'm doing on my vlog, running away from some reality or multiple realities I cannot really fathom, except that I'm running away from a late stage capitalist hellscape from where I come from, and that somehow I've mastered the skill of running away to different alternate timelines. Somehow I've mastered it by accident, and this is where I am. And I guess I'll never recover my videos, all 1132 of them, including my 20-part dissertation on King Kong. Yes, I wrote that. I filmed one. If I have my memory back, I will do that in my future vlogs. Or Deleuze and Guattari's fake Italian wedding book, something of that sort. Because there is a timeline in which those books exist, and I happen to come from them. I think some people ever get it wrong about loneliness and solitude. They tend to think it's something that's clearly defined, that solitude is something in which you feel refreshed by being alone, which is absolutely true in my case, as far as like you need to be alone to be creative, to find yourself and so on. But it always runs against another different current, and appropriately enough, we're in a place with clashing currents. And it's a social mirror, as it were. I kind of grew up not really needing friends, not really needing to socialize. I know that's not the type of personality that people look for in a damn blogger, but you know what? I have a voice as much as anybody else does, and I realize that, and I think what I do is I do it for those people, you people, who feel the same way in some sort of way. Kind of like on the schizoid, paranoid, schizophrenic spectrum, and that's clearly what and who this blog is for. I don't know if I'm making any sense, so I never really do. So this isn't really for feel-good vibes or anything of that. There's plenty of negativity in this blog, so you know, I'm unapologetic about that. I always believe you need a negative dialectic to counteract the positive one, especially nowadays in YouTube. It's absolutely toxic, in my opinion. Absolutely toxic. Okay, I'm gonna shut my gob for a bit. Someone wrote their name in the sand. Kind of enjoyed the other parts of the island. But yeah, this kind of gives you a nice feeling, I think, of existential loneliness and solitude. It's nothing that... It's always a conflicting feeling, I guess you could say. And I find comfort, I guess, in not really finding meaning to all of this. I believe that people generally are taking snapshots and worshiping them, but never seeing the whole picture, or that the picture is always shifting and that you can never capture the infinite. You can only capture a totality of it. Yeah. It's kind of like, to me, how religion, all spirituality is just a snapshot of the infinite, but never giving you the entire thing. And that, to me, is what fuels my existential loneliness and solitude. To me, you know, there's no running away. We can think of social belonging and love and things like that, and people always needing them, but there are people like me who don't as much. People like me need a voice out there. To those of us who don't really think that all of that exists, you know, like love existing and whatever, I don't. Okay, and with that said, I think I'll swim. Almost really is powdery white sand. It's very nice, almost like Boracay sand, but once you get to the sandbar I think it will be more coarse. This is more like it for me. This is more like it if you kind of want to get away, or at least the feeling that you've gotten away from technology, or from even language, which is kind of an implement of technology. And I think that's the reason why people like flocking to beaches, especially tropical islands with white sandy beach and clear water. I think they kind of want to forget technology, they kind of want to forget language, and kind of be in some sort of transcendental oneness with the earth, with some other, you know, being, with a supernatural consciousness. I think that's why people really, subconsciously flock to these kinds of places. But of course, you never really find that in very crowded places like, Thailand or parts of the Philippines now. You see a bunch of selfie stick bullshit and people taking groupies and, all that stuff for the Instagram and, once again creating a hyper reality of a place that doesn't really exist. And then of course, once you get to it, it almost feels like you've slipped into, a different place or a different incarnation of the place, because it doesn't ever fit the expectations of hyper reality, especially after all the stupid filters you get in Lightroom or Photoshop and such like that. It isn't really emblematic of the place, and then it feels kind of underwhelming. And then it's like, why can't I just live in my damn fantasy world than come out to real places like this? But you know what, you really should. And to prove that I'm kind of in a real place, even though this might be a figment of my imagination, because I'm quite cynical, is there's garbage still here. Because let's face it, humanity as a whole, to be honest, we're like a virus. We don't really know how to dispose of, and all we do is just overproduce and consume like crazy. And it doesn't help matters that capitalism gone mad, which we're kind of world right now, encourages those kinds of things, which in turn is quite dehumanizing, because when you become reliant on technology, you feel like you lack agency, you lack individual agency, which kind of goes against individuality after all, or the core tenets of individualism, I suppose you could say. Yeah. What is with me in sandbars and talking about deep topics? And it becomes easier, actually. I have a very difficult time expressing myself because I don't talk very much. And for me, vlogging is kind of, it's like a retirement hobby that I'm supposed to make some money out of, or something like that, just to stay alive and to eat and such like that. And it's horrible instinct of having to survive, right? That's why sometimes it's like, to be truly free means that you're free of your beliefs, you're free of all those things, and you can see things kind of as they are, and you can be just agnostic, I guess, about everything, and kind of see. And that's kind of like the approach for me. Learning the way of the Tao, I guess you could say, is, if you want to use a religious analog, it's like you never could know the way of the Tao. You just follow it, and you just so happen to do it in this like state of flow that's we should kind of be striving for, I think, to be kind of in the present moment, and then not worrying about what the future holds, as far as like having anxiety over a future that might not even come, and so on. So when just caring about being in the moment, and then kind of feeling like acquiring proficiency with whatever you're doing in the moment. And you don't have to acquire proficiency here. You can just be lazy, which is always a good thing. And to me, it's always the best way of protesting a world gone mad, is to be lazy. And lazy, especially in a place like this. But here's the problem, and I think a lot of travel bloggers kind of have to confess, really, and I think a lot of them do. It's really first world privilege, that we can kind of go out to these places and enjoy them, whereas, let's say, local Filipinos cannot. They don't always have the means to, and always pressing concerns here that are very relevant in the developing world. And for me, I just feel like travel, in a certain sense, in these parts in Southeast Asia, is almost like a recolonization in a very subtle way. Gone are the empires of Britain, and America is fading. Maybe there's a Chinese empire, and so on. The Great White Empire is kind of ending, but now what you have is more scattered, and people trying to find better standards of living lower standards, better standards of living at lower costs, and that's why they love the Philippines so much, you know. But in so doing, they don't really, in terms of culture, I sometimes don't think they get it, or they don't understand like the history, or they don't really want to care about that. They just want to live in this world that presents a certain image, that they're living a posh life. They're living the neoliberal dream somewhere else. The neoliberal dream, I guess you could call American dream. I will just call it the neoliberal dream of living, and that's, you know, there's a lot of things wrong with that. I mean, I'm not saying that capitalism is bad or that neoliberalism is bad. I'm just saying that eventually those have to give way to leftism, socialism, anarchism, so on. And what you see now, I guess, and a lot of people voluntarily give themselves to do it, is when people take in travel photos or the Instagram or on Facebook, they're kind of giving themselves up to a much more insidious and nefarious system of control, where people are just, again, taking stupid selfies of themselves. And I don't even think it's stupid in and of themselves, it's just banal as far as what they usually accomplish. You're taking snapshots of something, you know, that may exist or may not exist when you grow older, or something like that. I know I'm rambling. But in so doing, they give their data, they give their identities of where they are at one certain moment on the freaking tech grid of technological control. And there's a day that's out there. Some authority wants you to do such a thing, even though there's an illusion of voluntarism in that. Gosh, I'm so lonely, but I love it, right? The solitude. And so, give a sense of place here. In the background is the province of Leyte. Now, if you know your World War II history, you know that MacArthur did return here in 1944 and landed there. And you know, one of the key World War II battles were fought, naval battles were fought here in Leyte. Well, not here, not in this particular place, but in the province near. Right there. In the distant shades of mountains there is Leyte. But yeah, this is stunning. All alone, and I have to concede, it's absolutely worth it. So when you come here, make sure to walk to the other side of the Sandbar if you want complete, well, I don't know about complete, but close to complete solitude as much as possible. You're gonna have to watch out here because the currents don't make it good for swimming, obviously. And the sand here is a little more coarse than anything. So, hey, it looks like powdery, sugary sand on them pictures, right? But in reality, it isn't. It's time to go head back, I think, and eat lunch. From what I can guess, there's some fish, and then there's some pancit, which I'm never a fan of, really. Now, in some boat tours, from my understanding, is lunch is optional. You can bring your own lunch. I think there's, like, again, there's a restaurant here. They say there isn't really a place where they can cook, but there's definitely places you can picnic. You can take some barbecue and such and so on here. And that's the other sandbar on the way over there. That's the more popular sandbar. And we are in the nice idle part of the sandbar. As far as snorkeling is concerned, because we didn't have life vests, I was kind of, you know, reluctant to go out further. But there are apparently some giant clams out there. I didn't really think much of it as far as going out there and seeing giant clams. Just the comparison. It will probably remind me of Malcapuya Island, which is in Coron, Palawan. You can just find giant clams there too. and I'm not really a good swimmer, so I just stuck to the shallow end and just saw some nice corals and fish. But you know, to give you some comparison, Moalboal, I think, Moalboal, oh my dad gives me guff for it. Moalboal is an ideal for snorkeling. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, I don't really have any more words, except lunch is coming and I'm just going to enjoy myself here. Kind of in my own thoughts, but I'm always in my own thoughts and I can barely get a word in edgewise, even on my own blog. But anyway, I'll see you later. So after lunch, in which there are absolutely no pictures because everyone was ravenous enough to take everything else, we're back at the west side sandbar where there's hardly anybody here. Hardly anybody here, but ghosts. But ghosts. Yeah. And we only got now less than an hour to enjoy this last bit of stretch of beach, seemingly untouched by tourists. This is like one of the last few frontiers in Philippine beach that's not overrun by tourists. And I think the tide is rising, so a bit dicey. It's something about sandbars that makes me verbose and coherent, actually. So I'll tell you what my vlog is about, which, as I said, it isn't a travel blog. It isn't really a food blog. It contains those things, but like I said, it's not really the focal point of what I'm getting at. And what I'm getting at is kind of a fractal, multi-layered message, and in fact it really isn't much of a message. But one thing I think I try to get at a lot is, see, I'm a practitioner of what's called the derive. If some of you might be familiar with the Situationists and that of a guy named Guy Debord, who's a social theorist, a Marxist social theorist. And basically what the derive is basically just getting lost in the city. So anywhere you go in the city, let's say you choose Paris or Rome, you don't go to the touristy sites, you don't go necessarily to where they tell you to go, you just basically get lost in them. So basically it's this, it's what you would call psychogeography. And the whole idea is to get lost in the city because the way cities are designed or places are designed is that they're meant to usher in a thought that, like an organized thought, that you have to get from point A to point B. And it's a very planned, contrived sort of fashion. But when you get lost in the city, you kind of see the city for what it is. You see like the inner consciousness, the inner workings of the city, the many thousands of images that make up the city. And you get a different understanding than what they, quote unquote, they, as in the paranoiac they, are trying to get you to do, or what they're trying to hide you from. There is some sort of truth that they want to keep hidden, basically. So I guess in a place like this, in a lot of travel destinations where it's just beaches and such, you know, you're always told where to go, as what's the best places to go. And part of the wonder of travel really is getting lost and not really having to take pictures or documenting things and, you know, that sort of thing. And I mean, I guess I'm hypocritical when I say that, because, well, what are you doing? I'm just publishing where I am in a place that might not even exist, and by a person such as me that probably doesn't exist, maybe. Well, in a way, what I do here is this kind of art, I guess you could say, or tries to be an art form, because blogging to me is just, you know, it's a way of making money. It's become commodified. It becomes something that's easily segmented, or a niche it has to fill a certain economic need, and in so doing you're propagating white middle class values in doing so, bourgeois values, I would say, and they don't reflect a great amount of socioeconomic values of those who are working, basically. And so what this vlog really is a means of escape from the normal routes, away as much as possible from the spectacle, from the hyper reality, and trying to put different symbols, or think of it as shamanic divination, really. I like wherever I go, it's almost like whatever I say is like pulling out tarot cards, and then trying to sort of put a meaning together. That's kind of the best way to put it. Everywhere I go, it's basically a divination of the psychogeography of certain places, and especially here in Southeast Asia, which it's a lot more possible, which is more feasible to get around, travel a lot, kind of get away from the they or them, basically, as much as possible. Whether it be, you know, institutions of social control that are coercive, like the family, like friends, whatever, or your enemies, and that of economic and technological control is trying to get away from those types of systems while trying to put meaning to the kinds of places or the kinds of symbols, and putting them in, attaching different meanings to them, right? So we would say, oh, it's out of sequence, or, you know, it doesn't belong because it doesn't reach a certain market segment or a niche or whatever. It's a kind of like insurgency. It's a movement of defiance is what it is. And that's kind of what I hope this blog achieves, really. It's really one of defiance against the machine, I guess you could say. The many machines that make up they and them and the system and so on. And really to be one and accept existential loneliness, and, you know, to kind of see that everything in life, as far as like having a house, having a family, having, you know, a romantic relationship, those are all kind of they're nice, but they're also illusions of happiness. It's even happiness is itself an illusion, or you chasing happiness is an illusion. And, you know, fuck the side hustle shit that a lot of the travel bloggers try to get you to. I mean, that's a lot harder than you think, and they're speaking from privilege. They're not speaking from experience, they're speaking from their own experience. But they only talk about it from especially white middle class experience. They don't talk about working class people, or especially people of color like me. So this is what this is about. I mean, again, I don't really want to devolve this into identity politics, because by the same token, as far as I know, of course it'd be nice to have more Filipino voices like myself who remain kind of invisible. Invisible. We need more voices like mine. But I'm so many other things too, you know. I'm a schizoid, I'm a paranoid in a certain way. I'm kind of autistic, you know. People don't want to understand us. People don't, or even like a radical, really. People don't want to understand us. They just want to lock us into a certain narrative. And what I'm trying to do is go into different places and pretty much entangle the usual narrative of showing you a place and saying how nice it is and such. It's kind of like what they try to get you to say, like, oh, this is like the Maldives or something like that. But what I really want to try to do is put different types of meaning to it, different types of symbols, and what you get out of it is something different than what you're getting. And I realize I'm not really doing a great job at that, especially I'm starting out. Especially I'm trying to get out of that malaise into this alternate universe, which is all too familiar yet all too foreign to me. So yeah. And I think in future blogs it will become more apparent. See, to me, you the viewer, me making this, we're playing a game of chess. except that, you know, that's not very imaginative in a way, because it is a game of perfect information. It's millions of moves. You look at the board, and believe me, I played years as a child playing chess, and nationally rated as well. And it is a game of perfect information. What you see on the board is what is there. There's no luck involved, really. But this is a game of chess we're playing, and I don't really want to tell you exactly how or what I'm making. You're gonna have to make some interpretations of your own, and they're perfectly valid. That's the thing. And it seems like I'll be popping out different chess pieces out of everything, so it's almost like tarot, really, to me. Pulling out tarot cards and making different meanings, and you're no more right, you're no more wrong than I am. I'm no more right than you. So I think I'm gonna conclude this part of the vlog, and yeah, and as usual, I run out of things to say once we get to the end. So we'll go back to Malapascua Island. I think I'll show you. I haven't really done too much there as far as the vlogs are concerned, and we only leaving tomorrow from Bantayan Island, so we have to take a boat ferry there. I'll show you some of Malapascua Island if you haven't seen it. And until then, y'all take care, and I hope, you know, show you more places like this and to kind of give you a different interpretation of them compared to what you see out there. And so till then, remember, and especially be conscious, and I'm shifting into the sand a bit, that the empire, that empire never really ended, especially when it comes to they.
Maybe no t-shirt last week.
Geez, Dad, would you like to narrate instead of me?
I told you.
And what do you get for a prize? Nothing.
You have to refund our money. We need to refund.
Go ahead, Dad. Rise up an
We
insurrection.
need to refund.